Bruce, thank you. And thanks to those who've joined us live here. And then thank you to those who take the time actually to watch this after we finish going live and doing a Shots with Soldiers. And so this, welcome to the final episode of Shots with Soldiers for 2021. And very appropriate that we do it today on the 21st of December, right before that Christmas season and of peace and goodwill towards men and women and children. And I actually fundamentally believe that that peace part of it is no more strongly felt and the desire for it than by a group of soldiers. Because when peace fails, they bear the brunt of what follows. And that's been true in our history, it's true today, and it will be true in the future. So right before that, right in the middle of that season of peace and goodwill towards all, right before Christmas itself, the 21st of December is an awesome time to do Shots with Soldiers, our final episode for 2021. But it's also an incredible, an awesome time to do it because the 21st of December for Canada and for the Canadian Armed Forces and Canada's Army is an auspicious day indeed. Because on that day, were born our two most senior regiments in the Canadian Armed Forces. The Royal Canadian Dragoons, born first by a few moments, but kind of like being twins. Whoever is oldest born first, well, you're oldest forever. You're the senior forever. The Royal Canadian Dragoons, a regiment where I spent an incredible amount of my life, and the Royal Canadian Regiment, two of Canada's finest regiments who were born on this day back in 1883, the 138th anniversary for both regiments. And congratulations to all who have worn the Springbok, who have worn the RCR badge, and thank you for your service. I did a quick count today, really grosso modo, and in my view, somewhere between 175,000 and 200,000 people have worn the badge of the Royal Canadian Dragoons or the Royal Canadian Regiment during that 138 years. Might be more than that. It's really hard to count and know what the sort of average attrition might be, average size of the regiments, but I would say somewhere between 175,000 people and 200,000 people have worn those regimental hat badge in their service to Canada. And that's a pretty incredible history to have. And we've had Victoria Cross winners on the Royal Canadian Dragoons. We had three individuals who won the Victoria Cross on that same day, on the 7th of November, 1900, in the Boer War at a place called Lily-Fontaine. We've had Victoria Crosses won in World War I, World War II, and we hope to have a Victoria Cross awarded as a result of the fighting in Afghanistan to a member who wore the badge of the Royal Canadian Regiment, Jess Larochelle. And if you're not aware of our initiative of Valor in the Presence of the Enemy, then go online and social media and search it up and get yourself educated and come on and support it and share and like and go sign the petition saying that this incredible Canadian was so valorous in the face of the enemy on the 14th of October, 2006, that he should be recognized with a Victoria Cross. And at least a review of his citation would be appropriate at this point in time. And so thank you in advance for reaching forward to do it. So on the 21st of December, the birthday of two incredible regiments in Canada. But tonight, in addition to being able to do a Shots in support, in tribute to the Dragoons and the Royals who served our nation, I think it's kind of an appropriate time to do a Shots in tribute to all of those who served, and in particular, all of those who served and who served as a Christmas, during a Christmas away from their families. I've had that experience and that opportunity. Tens and hundreds of thousands of others have also, and whether that was during the Northwest Rebellion, whether that was during the Boer War, or whether that was during World War I or World War II or Korea, or peacekeeping operations around the world, or in Afghanistan itself, soldiers spent time away from they spent time away at Christmas, and they missed all those festivities. They missed their families coming together, and they missed that incredible time of just being together as a family and growing stronger. And they missed that time of peace and goodwill towards all. And I said several times to soldiers when I was traveling to visit with them on Christmases in Afghanistan, in Bosnia, in Croatia, that, you know, being away from a family at Christmas time is tough. because they're there and you can feel what they're going through. You know that they miss you, you miss them. And sometimes it gets so painful as you think you can hardly bear it. But once you know that you are going to be away for Christmas, and presupposing that you've set your family up for success before you left, then actually being with your battle brothers and sisters at Christmas time is very special indeed. And whether that's being in northwest of Europe in Christmas of 1944, or on the Western Front in Christmas of 1915 or 1916 or 1917, or whether that is being at Sperwengar or furthest outpost in Afghanistan in Christmas of 06 or 07 or 08 or any of those others, when you're there, whether you're in a bunker having fruitcake with Rick Mercer and your battle brothers and sisters, or whether you're actually doing a sentry at 0200 hours in the morning, a post on the sentry at 0200 hours in the morning, or whether you're preparing dinner for those who are coming back in or getting breakfast ready for those who are going out during that day, it is actually a very special time that you get to share with those battle brothers and sisters. And not in a laughing matter, I jumped on an aircraft in Afghanistan on Christmas Day in 2007. It was not a Canadian helicopter, it was another nation's helicopter. And as I jumped on and I sat down and buckled my seatbelt, I looked across the very tiny, narrow aisle, and there was a blow-up doll with a Santa Claus suit on sitting opposite me, strapped into its seat by the helicopter crew. Kind of haven't forgotten that one. It was just a mark of good humor, actually, by that helicopter crew. So what I'd like to do tonight is just say, Shots with Soldiers comes from soldiers, particularly in World War I, but not just, getting a shot of rum mostly before they went over the top in the attack. It gave them a little warming of the belly, gave them perhaps at times a little liquid courage when they were nervous and scared, calmed them down just a little tiny bit. And we carry on that tradition. You can use whatever drink you wish, alcoholic or non-alcoholic. It is your choice. It does not have to be one or the other. And tonight what I'm doing is drinking a shot of rum, which was the common drink issued to our soldiers. So to say, tonight, here's the tribute to all of those who wore the Dragoon badge and celebrating their birthday today, all those who wore the badge of the Royal Canadian Regiment who are celebrating their birthday today, and all those servicemen and women who served Canada wearing our nation's uniform, our flag on their left sleeve, no matter which war, no matter which continent, no matter where they were on Christmas away from their families. We thank you all for your service. We remember each and every one of you. We will continue to share your stories and your history and the things that you did to make this country so great. And we continue to stand in awe of your service and your sacrifice. Now, I know on the call tonight, we've got a variety of veterans and their families who are listening here, and more will watch this video. I just want to acknowledge Lieutenant General Retired Omer Lavoie. I said several times when I met him, one of my personal heroes for his leadership, for his courage, for his values, for his inspiration, not just to the soldiers that he led in combat, that he trained and prepared so well to be successful in combat, but an inspiration to the leaders that he reported to, like myself, because I could look at Homer and know that the men and women that we entrusted to his command were going to be well led, well served, and well supported. To all of those in this Christmas season, I'm going to raise a glass and ask that you come back on with your cameras, and we'll do a shot to all those who served in the Dragoons, all those who served in the Royal Canadian Regiment, and all those who served in the uniform of Canada and served away from their families over a Christmas period. To the men and women of the Canadian Forces, and a Merry Christmas to all of them and their families. And I'll stop there.
All right. Are there any questions for the general?
I would Well,
Go
Mick
ahead.
and I are going at the same time. I'll let you go first, Mick.
I was just going to say that the most famous Christmas story that I know is in the First World War, where the soldiers laid down their arms to play soccer and share cigarettes over the course of the battlefield. Did anything like that ever happen anywhere else in history?
Mick, I'm not an historian, so I can't say for certain yes or no. Here's what I would say. It certainly never happened in Afghanistan. We certainly didn't see that kind of love amongst men and women in places like Croatia and Bosnia, where the hatred was incredible, and the challenges to respecting humans as individuals were seldom met. And I would simply say that in what you've seen in those advertisements and what you have heard about were 1914 and 1915. By the time 1916 and 1917 rolled around, the 1st Canadian Army, the British Expeditionary Force, the French Army, and the German Army had morphed into killing machines. And no Christmas truces were taking place after 1915. And indeed, in 1915, they were small, very localized things that occurred, because if somebody had gotten up in 1916 and tried to imitate what you see in that commercial about playing soccer, they probably would have been shot. Sir Arthur Currie, I think it was in 1926, articulated very clearly what had happened in the Canadian Corps in 1915 because of the Second Battle of Ypres, where they were gassed and took such horrible casualties, and then during the Battle of the Somme in the fall of 1916, and then during Vimy and Hill 70 and Passchendaele in 1917. And he said simply, we would have killed them all if we'd had the opportunity. We would have gassed them all, and he used a variety of words. I'm not sure exactly now what he said. I read it many times. So those Christmas truces didn't take place very frequently, particularly after 1915. By 1944, Christmas of 1944, and into 1945, 1st Canadian Army, after having fought through Sicily, Italy, and then Normandy, and then northwest of Europe against that Nazi war machine, had turned into a killing machine also. And if you read the regimental archives, the regimental histories, and the individual tales of what occurred, there was no way that a Christmas truce would have taken place. Excuse me, nor did it in Korea. And as I mentioned, it certainly did not in Afghanistan. So that's the limit of my knowledge. Those Christmas truce episodes were infrequent. They were early in World War I, and they did not take place after. I could be corrected by military historians who know more than I.
Excellent answer. Thank you.
I think actually, I'm not a military historian, but I think that's absolutely true. I do have a question. Have there been any, and I'm sorry, you say you're not a military historian, so this may not be fair. Do you know of any battles that were fought on December 25th?
The Battle of the Bulge is the most famous or infamous, depending on what you want to describe it as. And, you go to West Point and you walk through their residence, and you see all of the leaders who rose to fame, if you will, as leaders. Their pictures and their citations on the wall. And the one that always enthralls me when I go there is Brigadier General McAuliffe, who was the division artillery commander, and all of his commanders were away. His division commander, the assistant division commander were away when they got mobilized and pushed into the Bulge in the Ardennes, and then fought from, I think it was about 17 December through Christmas Day. And the Germans, of course, surrounded the town of Bastogne, which was the center of the hub for the transportation network. And the 101st was surrounded in that town on Christmas Day. He received a request for surrender, or a demand for surrender, from the German commander, and his response, very famously, was nuts. We're not surrendering. We're not going anywhere, and neither are you guys, by the way. And so Christmas Day, 1944, probably the most famous battle that I know of, took place in the Ardennes between, obviously, the Nazi war machine and, in particular, the American Army, but the British Corps under Montgomery was responsible for making sure and containing the bridgehead or containing the bulge and then actually squeezing it down, and took under command Hodges, I don't know, it was First Army, I believe, took under command Hodges, First Army, and left Omar Bradley really with nothing. So Christmas Day, 1944, Battle of the Bulge. If you ever get the opportunity to go to Bastogne and see the museum there, it's absolutely riveting, absolutely emotional. And you know, when you're freezing, when you're ill prepared for the cold, when you've deployed very quickly out of Lviv close to Paris and move forward, and you don't have your anti-tank guns, you don't have all of your artillery, you don't have all of your rations, many of your unit were missing and trying to join up en route, and all of a sudden you're into a fight against the Panzer Corps of the Wehrmacht. There's a Christmas Day you would remember.
General, I think Hong Kong fell on a Christmas Day in 1941 also.
Oh, you're right. Yes.
My bad.
You're
Hong Kong.
absolutely right. Hong Kong. I knew there was something. It was Hong Kong. I'd forgotten about the Battle of the Bulge, but Hong Kong.
So I plead guilty to that, and I plead guilty, as all of us did in our country. We have a European-only focus, and our focus in the Pacific, and specifically to Hong Kong after that time frame was minuscule to zero.
There was a Victoria Cross recipient in Hong Kong too, was there not?
There was. And we also have the war dog Gander, that was part of the Canadian contingent that deployed, who was decorated for his courage in jumping on a Japanese soldier and attacking a Japanese soldier who was trying to throw a grenade into a group of our soldiers. And the dog was a Newfoundland dog. Gander was his name. And there's a book written about him, actually.
That's
So,
right. Yeah, you're
interesting.
yes. I've read the book. There's a novel about it too, where Gander.
There
is
is.
in the novel.
There is indeed. So
Yeah.
my apologies. I should have mentioned Hong Kong, because we do tend to forget it. And we tend to forget most specifically what a brutal time that the men who were captured, who surrendered on Christmas Day in Hong Kong, what a brutal time they went through from 1941, 25 December, until they were liberated in 1945, most of them. And their casualty rates, their death rates were astronomical. And when they were finally liberated by the Allies and brought back into society, it was interesting to read some of the books. I've never talked to somebody who was a prisoner there, but I thought about when they first came into a mess hall, and here they had been for 4 years, starved, beaten, brutalized, tortured in ways that you cannot imagine. And leadership was so important. And you talk about guys like Air Commodore Len Burchell, who was a leader extraordinaire. And we talked about Len Burchell, in fact, on Shots with Soldiers before. And when these guys got released, got liberated, brought back into the Allied lines and went into a mess hall. And so they've been given showers and deloused and given clean uniforms to wear. And they go through effectively a buffet line or a chow line. And one guy said he looked back at his buddies and they couldn't move because their shirts were stuffed with cans and bottles of food that they saw in the racks, because of course the tendency after 4 years, if there was food, you stole it, you hid it away, and you used that to survive another day. He said guys were walking through with 25 pounds of cans and bottles of food stuffed in their shirts because they couldn't accept the fact that they now were liberated and would have lots of food to eat. It's an interesting dynamic to just think about the psychology that led to that, and the events that led to that.
I spent a day with Len Burchell, and I'll never forget it. It was one of the most memorable days of my life. He's such an extraordinary man.
He was awarded the Vimy Award in 2003 or 2004. I was at the dinner, and he, of course, the award winner gets to speak, and he spoke, and it was the most riveting speech of leadership that I think I've ever heard. Air Commodore Len Burchell, a Canadian hero. How many Canadians do you think would recognize his name? What a sad job we do, Gordon Henderson and Mick Gzowski, of telling that story.
Well, I'll tell you, I tried to I spent that day filming him. I've got a 3-hour interview I did with him, but somebody else beat me to, he agreed to go with another production company, and they did something on History Television that was immediately forgotten. So he screwed it up.
So
I still
I've been
have those
privileged.
tapes. I still have those.
I was privileged to receive the Air Commodore Len Burchell Leadership Award. And all I had to say was simply to have my name mentioned in the same sort of sentence as Air Commodore Len Burchell was a privilege in and of itself. Never mind the award, never mind any of that, just to have my name mentioned, as kind of a follow-on from this incredible Canadian leader was a privilege in and of itself.
Speaking of leadership, sir, I wanted to kind of announce to everybody and about some of the steps that Valor has taken in the last few weeks since we've started our petition E3636 to Jess Larochelle. Our social media pages is now at 15,000 followers now. That's in roughly a year's time, sir. So we're doing very well in terms of that. We've managed to get the RCR Association, the PPCLI Association, the CSOR Association, the Royal Artillery Association, the Queen's Own Rifles Association, amongst a few others. And I think in the next coming days, we're going to have the Airborne Regiment Association endorsing our cause, along with the Royal Canadian Legion. I believe one of the people, I believe Sandra, somebody here is from, Carolyn. She was instrumental in passing the motion during the last Royal Canadian Legion general meeting, and her and Andrea are spearheaded that cause. So Carolyn, thank you very much for supporting us and supporting this cause. We have.
Bruce, let me interrupt there while
Yes,
you're on
sir.
that subject before you go to the next one, if you don't mind, please. And to Carolyn, thank you, Carolyn, for doing that. And what I ask is that, not to you specifically, Carolyn, but to every one of us here, one of the things that will cause us to get a growing momentum on the Valor in the Presence of the Enemy initiative for Jess Larochelle and then others besides him, because it's not just Jess Larochelle who should be reconsidered, would be a resolution from every single community and town and city in Canada supporting this review of a citation. And so every single city, town, or community that's at a single person from that place serve in the Canadian Armed Forces, we ask that you show your support to them by coming on and formally supporting the review of that citation and our petition. And do that in the form of a resolution from the town or community or city supporting it. And so what I'm asking is each one of you who hear this on call now and later on when people will see this online, is that you actually take that initiative and trigger it through your community council, your town council, or your city council, through the member who represents you or others, or directly through the mayor, and actually get that resolution moved. If you want a great example, in the City of North Bay's resolution supporting the review of the citation for Jess Larochelle, and is possible, we're not saying, yes, make him a VC. We're saying, if you review that citation, we actually think you will agree that it should be a VC, but support a review of the citation. That's what we're asking now. That would give us an incredible momentum going forward here.
We already have dozens of motions across the country submitted. If you want a template that you can submit, message us and we will send it to you directly. The other thing is, along with North Bay, the city of Timmins and the county of Vermilion River have all submitted have passed resolutions. The city of Ottawa is going to put up their resolution on January 26th. And we have quite a few others that are going to be doing this in the new year. So thank you. Our petition is at almost 12,000. And we are, we're looking very good in terms of our support. The other thing too is ask your regimental associations to go forward. I've messaged most of them already. I haven't received word back from some, but if you personally ask your personal regiment to look at this and support this and stand amongst the other regiments that have already put their names forward as saying they support this, it could go a long way.
And in addition to that, in addition to our regimental associations, and Bruce has done magnificent work in pushing so much of it through and getting people to think about this and therefore support it, because I think it's almost natural to support it once you think about it and once you look at what we're proposing. But we also ask that the Navy and the Air Force associations support. This is not about soldiers. This is about Canadians who served our nation, wearing our uniform with our maple leaf on their shoulder, and perhaps should be recognized in a more appropriate way for what they did. Jess Larochelle being the first case in point. There will be others, we do believe. So this is not about the Army. This is not about a soldier. This is about airmen and women. This is about sailors. This is about soldiers. It's about people who serve Canada wearing our uniform and our flag on their shoulder. We ask the Navy Association and the Air Force Association to support us also.
I think that's a good place to wrap it, to end, sir. Thank you again for doing this. Shots with Soldiers, our last episode of the year. Yeah, please like, follow, subscribe to our content, and share it, and most importantly. And to all the men and women, valor in the presence of the enemy, we'd like to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas to all.
Merry Christmas.
And to all, a good night.
Christmas.